Well, welcome back to the studio and the Energy Sovereignty Project's final raw data recap for the year of 2019, our last week in December. And I want to dedicate this video to a group of subscribers that I call the 300. We have a subgroup of about 300 or so subscribers that are part of this early group that came on board. When we first started doing the videos, we had 25, 30, then 50, then maybe 70 or so, and I watched it kind of track as we went along. But the reason that I know you crazies are out there is because I've been watching the analytics, and as we've been progressing, certainly these videos are not the most popular videos. If you go and you look, you can see that we've been experimenting with several different formats over the last few months. And so these are very dry videos. Now, if we didn't have these 300 people, what we would have normally seen is those early videos, they would have just kind of stuck, maybe 50, 70, 100. But they didn't. What I've been noticing is that as we've been progressing along, we've developed this core group of 300 or so subscribers that have actually gone back and watched every one of those dry videos because they were interested in this raw data. And so I just want to raise a glass to you, wonderful bunch of geeks and geekettes. No, I haven't forgotten about you, Helen. that have actually gone back and watched every one of these videos. Now, these videos obviously were done to chronicle what we did. That way, everybody could see as it was progressing, and now that it's done and we start showing these final conclusions on what all of this raw data meant, that now people can actually go back and reference this material to see that we weren't kidding. We actually did X, Y, and Z on this particular day or this particular week or this particular month. And again, the idea was to present this to you all, warts and all. And a toast to the 300 or so individuals that have been following along with this and sticking with these crazy updates. You are my inspiration for finishing these up, and especially in these last few crazy weeks where the system's kind of gone haywire. I haven't really been able to experiment too much with the system, as you see. Just kind of ended the year with a whimper, not a bang. It just kind of was what it was. But all through that, you stuck with me, and just I can't tell you how much that means to me on a personal level. And so, pause the video here, grab yourself a tasty beverage, and let's go ahead and kick off where we left off on the 22nd. So hopefully you're back with your beverage now. So here we have December 22nd. Just a quick recap of this day, since obviously you've already seen it once. This was where we finished off with our last recap. So we're starting at 9% and ending the day at 12%. Only a 4.5 kilowatt hour production due to the rainy weather. System was at 10% reserve at this time, so the expectation is obviously that we're not going to be able to run very long on just that 2% over the reserve setting. Daily usage of 17.8 kilowatt hours, and so quite a disparity there. And so nearly all of the 20.1 kilowatt hours of usage today came straight from the grid. And the notes, just that, heavy rains. What little production we did get was kind of plagued with those transitional spikes that kind of call into questions of about maybe half a kilowatt hour or so of our daily consumption. And the 23rd, partly cloudy day, giving us some decent production for the day, 20.1 kilowatt hours. Only about 2 to 3 kilowatt hours under what we know to be our maximum for this time of year. Again, we've been following those benchmarks throughout the year. And this brought us from our reserve of 10% to finish the day at 28%. And again, this is about 18% or so over the reserve, so it's not likely we'll make it until morning, but we're going to come pretty close. And so this is started to show up in our from the grid numbers, showing that we've got a little bit of a reduction there. The 24-hour period overall here is showing 11.5 kilowatt hours of power taken from the grid out of our total home usage of 22.6. And here are the notes. Again, partly cloudy, decent production, fairly sunny skies at the time of peak production, so that's always good. And then the 24th. We didn't make it until morning, but we obviously came pretty close, as is evident by our grid usage for the day at 7.3 kilowatt hours out of a total of 20.9 kilowatt hours used. And production numbers were pretty good, 19.3 kilowatt hours. And again, that was pretty good, given that it was such an overcast day. Again, a lot of that is just the luck of the draw. Where do you get your most cloudy period of the day? And so the power walls here, you can see they're getting a workout, 9.2 kilowatt hours from, and then 14.2 kilowatt hours to them. And again, this is always a good, it's always a good thing to take a look at. Obviously, those that have been following these have been probably watching those numbers fairly closely. That's a good indicator of if you have a similar sized system and you had X number of power walls, how would you have done? Would you have been able to charge them all? Would they have been completely depleted? And so the numbers that we chose to monitor on this were chosen for that reason. It's important to present that type of data. It's really important for scaling your own systems. And the notes, basically that, just another day of smooth running. Transitional spikes do show up giving us a 0.8 kilowatt hour to the grid. And again, this might be a little suspect, but maybe 5 kilowatt hours of or so of that is likely error. So, and we have the 25th. Again, we didn't quite make it till morning, and the solar contribution was no help today. Partly sunny, mostly rainy conditions gave us 12.9 kilowatt hours of production against a home usage of 20.2 kilowatt hours. And overall, it's resulted in 18.3 kilowatt hours being taken from the grid, as you can see there. And we ended the day at 18%, about 8% over our reserve setting. And we can expect the system to run on battery power only till maybe about 8 or 9 p.m. So instead of having it just go ahead and deplete, I decided to go ahead and increase the reserve setting. And so here are the notes, and as you can see here, we aren't making our daily numbers anyway. And so now for battery health, you might decide that you want to put your system at 20% or 50% if you have a smaller system, maybe even higher. And that way you get an opportunity to have all of the sunlight from the following day come into the system to bring it up to a healthy point, or a point where you are comfortable with having some power in the system in case of a power outage. And so here we have the 26th, and then that basically shows what we did. Because the system was already below 20%, the reserve we set on the system used 13.7 kilowatt hours from midnight to first solar contribution, and then it ran on solar for the rest of the day. And so the total production of 22 kilowatt hours against home usage of 21 kilowatt hours. So we ended the day at 32%, and that's 12% over the reserve setting. And so that's enough to get us maybe a little bit past midnight, but not quite till morning. And the notes, and this shows just what I was talking about before as far as the expected production. Very sunny day, and because that represents a benchmark again for this time of year, we went ahead and recorded that as a benchmark. And then that's obviously something we'll go into detail with in further videos. And the 27th, starting the day at 20%, shows we didn't quite make it till morning, because that's our reserve setting, that's our zero basically. And another good day of production, 22.9 kilowatt hours against a total home use of 20.4 kilowatt hours. And that allows us to bank just a little bit of power. And so we ended the day at 38%, again 18% over the reserve. so there's a chance that we'll make it until morning. And then you see that asterisk there at the 10 kilowatt hours that we took from the grid. There's the notes. We had some odd activity in the evening for today, where the system was drawing some power from the grid, and this was something that we showcased in our software fix video that we did. So while I believe that the 10 kilowatt hour draw from the grid was mostly accurate, it was also unnecessary, since we had battery power in the system at the time it was doing it. And so it seems odd to me whenever I see a to or from the grid number while we've got battery power and the system then set on its self-powered mode. So that's always kind of annoying to see. And we have December 28th. Here again, start with a couple of things. Firstly, you'll notice that we started the day at 22%. And that's about 2% over our reserve setting, so we did make it until morning. But in short, this means that, with a sunny day today and a production of 21.9 kilowatt hours, and then you got a home usage of 24.6 kilowatt hours, it's difficult to know how much of that 4.2 kilowatt hours we actually took from the grid that was necessary, because again, we had 2% when we started, so that's pretty close to that 2% number as far as the amount of power we're looking at. But it's not really worth whining about. It's just interesting that the system decided to take power from the grid today. And ending the day at 38%, 18% over reserve, we find ourselves in a nearly identical place to where we were on the 27th. And the notes, just what I said about the draw. I'm not going to go be kind enough at this point to imagine that this was due to some AI operating in the background of the software. I'm no longer willing to give them that much benefit of the doubt. Their software was just broken. And the 29th, again, we didn't quite make it till morning, and we had a very reduced production today, 7.4 kilowatt hours. Basically only kept up with the home's usage during the day, finishing the day only about 3% above our reserve, and this was reflected in the daily use number, taking 10.5 kilowatt hours from the grid with a total home usage of 20.1 kilowatt hours, so basically half. And the notes, again, just that, power until 5:30 a.m., not much contribution for the day. And the reserve we were back down to our reserve around 5 p.m. And the 30th, for all the rain today, we actually did have some decent production. Again, just the luck of the draw as to when the rains hit. We're also unfortunately doing a bit of entertaining today, though, so no help there. 37.7 kilowatt hours of power used by the home, and the total solar day percentage represents that fact. We set the reserve back to 10%, and much of the consumption was done midday, and that allowed it to come from the battery for the most part, as evident by that draw from the batteries, as you can see there, of 25.3 kilowatt hour. It came from the power wall, and only 6.1 kilowatt hours was taken from the grid. Again, and that was because of that reduction in the reserve setting. And the notes, I'll give you a few minutes with that, basically says exactly what I just said. And finally, December the 21st, or 21st. Bringing our project to full circle where we started from. One complete year of constant information gathering. Starting the day at our reserve at 10%, cloudy day, total production of 18.3 kilowatt hours. Total usage today, again, we were still doing entertaining, 34.7 kilowatt hours. Ending the day at 18%. System charge, 8% over the reserve. Total from the grid for the day, 28.6 kilowatt hours. And the notes. Just what I said. Entertaining and cooking for the day. And that is it, gang. Whew! I cannot say that I'm going to miss doing these daily logs. But I can't say that it hasn't been fun either. It really has been an interesting thing to do, to monitor the system, to actually see what it's doing, babysit the thing for a year, to get familiar with every little nuance of what the system did. And we had our highs and our lows. We had a few unscheduled maintenance days, and of course throughout the year we were wrestling with our utility provider and also wrestling with PG&E. We still are. They've just recently refused our SGIP. We'll do a separate video on that. And it's basically, that's what you can expect when you put a weasel in charge of the hen house. So, here's to you guys. Once again, to our 300, a toast to you, and my sincere thanks for your support through all of this. It's just been fantastic, and we will be seeing you very soon as we present the closeout videos where we go over our conclusions that we got from the raw data. Raw data is an interesting thing. It doesn't always tell us what we think it does. Obviously, from what you can see here, it's mostly been for the better, but there's been some interesting things to learn as well, especially about losses through the year, and we'll have a special video where we cover nothing but the losses and see how you guys can set up your system so that you can mitigate that, and then also set up your day-to-day operations, again, in ways that will allow you to do even better than we did, and we did pretty good. So, thank you guys very much, and we'll see you soon.